and welcome to this week's episode of the BKTY podcast. I'm your host, John Wynn, and I'm with my co-host, Hallie, right?
Hello, everyone.
And without further ado, let us get into today's topic. So today, I want to bring attention to this video that has been shown in pretty much every psychology class that I've taken so far in this semester. And it's this idea of empathy versus sympathy. So when someone's going through something rough, there's sort of like these two different modes of ways you can sort of try and interact with them or try to help them out. A lot of people end up on the sympathy boat, where it's more focused on sort of trying to see the positives or see the silver linings. It's when someone's going through a rough time, you're just like, oh, hey, I'm really sorry about that. And then maybe you ask to get them their favorite food, or you try to cheer them up, or you try to say, oh, well, at least you have this, right? But empathy is a different sort of method. And typically it's the one that I feel is a lot more genuine and a lot more helpful for not only your mental health, but also the mental health of others who are going through a really rough time. Because empathy is sort of sitting down with that person who's going through a rough time and experiencing that emotion alongside them. It's sort of saying, hey, you've been through some really rough times, and I also have been through really rough times, and I wanted to show you that you don't have to go through those rough times alone. It's not saying, I know how to fix your problems. It's not saying, oh, just look at the positives. It's saying, I understand that you're going through a really rough time, and I want to be here alongside you.
I totally agree. I think sometimes that a shitty situation doesn't really have to have a solution. And sometimes it literally doesn't have a solution. So when you have a friend that's kind of going through a rough time, sometimes you just have to be a good friend and sit by them and hold their hand and say, hey, I'm with you and I understand and I'm here to listen if you need anything and if you just want to talk about it or rant about it or anything of the sort. So yeah, sharing empathy rather than just sympathy and saying, well, at least this is going for you. At least you're in college. At least you have good friends. You know, that might suck, but at least you have this. Or even worse, oh my gosh, I hate it when people say this. At least you're not someone else, enter their name here, that is going through a worse situation than you are. Like, have some perspective. That's not a good way to go about it. So yeah, definitely showing some empathy is kind of today's topic and what we want to discuss with all of you.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point, in that pain isn't comparative. You never want to say that someone else is going through something worse than you are, and therefore you shouldn't feel bad about it. No, you encounter your own issues and your own tribulations, and those are valid. It's valid to go through your own problems, even if you're not suffering as much as other people, as other people might tell you, saying like, "Man up, you're not doing as bad as they are." No. You're going through your times, you're going through your problems, and that's okay. It's okay to be sad, it's okay to be down sometimes, and it's okay to want help and want someone to be beside you. But of course, if it was that easy, this episode would probably be 5 minutes long, but it's not going to be. So
nope, sorry guys.
I definitely no, that's definitely okay. So I want to start this discussion right now that's saying, okay, so we want to be empathetic, and we think being empathetic is the right way to go in sort of helping other people and the people we care about through hard times. But how exactly do you be empathetic?
Yeah, sometimes it's really hard to kind of, in a sense, retrain your brain to take a route of empathy rather than a route of sympathy. And really get into the mindset of where when you hear someone going through a hard time, or even if a friend, even if it's not just, a friend sitting you down and telling you about a problem, maybe you just like hear an issue going on in the world. Or maybe you hear a story from a friend of something that someone else is going through, and just sitting and kind of being like, oh man, and having that empathetic moment. It's kind of difficult. It's something that I struggle with personally, which is, why when John brought to me this topic, I was kind of like, I don't know, like a little nervous to talk about it and see where it goes. But it's something that takes hard work. It's not going to be as easy as just being, turning on a light or flipping a switch or doing whatever and being like, oh yeah, I'm empathetic now. Like, no, it really does take a lot of practice. And, being kind to yourself and knowing that retraining your brain to take that empathetic route, it takes sometimes some time. But that's the point. It's the journey that matters, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really solid point that it's really difficult sometimes. Like there's been situations sort of before I really, sort of got in touch with sort of my emotions and things like that, which took a long time to do, where
Mhm.
a friend would come by, they would sit me down and say, "Hey John, I need to talk to you for a bit." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure." And they would pour their heart out. And I remember one time very explicitly back in middle school, a friend of mine, his mother died, and it was such a difficult situation for to sort of try and be a good friend because I just didn't know what to say. When someone comes down and sits you down and tells you that, their mother just passed away, and like this is middle school, by the way, like we're like 13, 12. We really haven't hit the hump of like sort of getting really in touch with our emotions. So I was just kind of sitting there, I was like, I have no idea what to say. And sort of the default for a lot of people is just like, oh, just look at the positives, just. But then even in situations that aren't as severe as losing a parent, it's just that like when you're being sympathetic, you're missing the point, because the what my friend wanted me to do was just be there for him. I didn't need to tell him the pros of not having a mom. I didn't need solutions, you know but
Yeah.
I just didn't know what to do. At the time,
Yeah.
I was just out of there. And the thing is, that's okay. It is completely okay to sort of not know what to do, because empathy is a skill you train. It's not a natural thing you have. Sometimes more people are more inclined to it. That is true. But it's something
Yeah.
that you have to develop. And so at the time,
Yeah.
I had no idea what to say. I had no idea what to do. I kind of just shut up. I was just really quiet. I didn't say anything. I helped him. I helped him get some food, and like I tried to like buy his lunch or something to just be nice, because I didn't know what else to do. But as I got older and I started to get in touch with these things, and I started to learn more about psychology and mental health and things like that, I started to realize that in my own experiences, when I was the person who was telling people about my heavy experiences, about my really traumatic times, I realized, and I just sat and I thought, what do I want from the people that I tell? And I just said, I just wanted them to sit there with me. And
Yeah.
so I realized that through my own perspective, that sometimes, like, you just need to sit there, and you just need to look at your friend and say, hey, like, I'm really sorry that you've been through that, and I really wish you didn't have to go through those sort of things. And then
Yeah.
very often when people come to me and tell me about really negative experiences, I pull on my own experiences and I say, hey, I've been through some really rough stuff too, but I want you to know that you're not going through this alone. You're not the only person that goes through this, and you can get through this, because we can get through it together. And that's the focus. When you're empathetic, you're always focusing on the person that you're being empathetic with, whether that be yourself
Yeah.
or whether that be someone you care about.
And it's really not a one size fit all kind of solution, really. It's not like you can approach every situation and be like, well, I get that you're feeling this way. Let me help you and say I'm feeling this way. Like, it sometimes takes a little digging deeper and, really getting to the actual emotions that they're feeling. I feel like losing a parent is probably just the toughest, like almost pinnacle situation of showing empathy, because if you've never experienced that yourself, or even if it's not that situation or just something in general, like whether your parents haven't been divorced or you haven't lost a parent, or whatever situation it is, it's really not so that you can bring up your own experience and shine it on yourself in a sense, but just feeling the emotion that they're feeling, really digging deep and thinking, I wonder what Johnny or whoever person is. I said Johnny, even though I just realized that was your name, John. So I realized that's probably a little weird. But thinking like whoever Sally or whoever it is that's talking to you, like I wonder what that feels like to go through what she's feeling. I bet she feels scared. I bet she feels lost and maybe a little helpless. And I wonder what it would be like to be in that position, and what can I do to make her feel a little more at ease and know that she's going to be okay, and that whenever she needs to talk, or he, or you know vent or just get it out of their system, you're going to be a friend there that can just really listen and understand, hey, even if I don't know that situation and I've never been through that type of hardship that they have been through, I know what those feelings feel like, and I feel like that's a way to better relate to someone, especially if, you're having a hard time and you don't know what to say. If you're listening to someone kind of pour their heart out to you and you know that that's such a vulnerable thing for them to do, yet you don't even know what to say because how can you comfort someone that loses a parent? You can't. And so it's just knowing the emotions that go behind it and really being able to dig deep in your own past experience and saying, I remember when I lost this, or I remember when I lost someone in my life, or I remember when I felt hopeless this one time, and being able to draw back on your own experience that way. I feel like that's how we can all find a little more empathy um, when dealing with these tough situations. And know that if you're on the giving end, if you're someone that has gone through a really tough time, it can be really hard to open up that way because especially if it's a really unique situation, a lot of people might have not gone through that similar time that you have gone through. I know for like in my life, when my parents got divorced, it was really hard for me to talk about it because it was such a unique situation and really difficult that I knew people wouldn't get it. I knew people wouldn't understand. Most people probably haven't been through that experience. That was unique to myself, not just like a generic divorce, but something a lot messier. And I just remember thinking, no one's going to get it. No one's going to understand. When really, sometimes it's more about just leaning on a friend and asking for help when you need help rather than asking for someone to solve your problems because it's just never, a shitty situation. Sometimes it's just a shitty fucking situation. And that sucks. Sometimes you literally just have to sit in it and feel those feelings. And it's uncomfortable. But leaning on a friend and telling your story and having really someone that you care about listen and be there for you, it's a feeling unlike any other. And I think it really helps with traumatic healing too, as well. Not to go on to a side tangent completely, but um, those are just like my thoughts with that.
Yeah, I totally get it, and I really appreciate you being able to talk about your own experiences and
Yeah.
bringing up that sort of personal experience because I know that might be hard sometimes. And I think what your example shows more than anything else is that the key to empathy is self-awareness and reflection. You have to be sort of in touch with your own emotions to sort of be empathetic and to sort of welcome people into sort of your experiences so that they can be empathetic because by being aware of your emotions and being really cognizant of what you feel when certain events happen, it allows you to sort of share those emotions with people because that's what empathy is all about. It's about sharing emotions. So when you go through a really rough time, like for example when I went through my rough experiences with depression, you feel a set of emotions. Sometimes you feel angry, sometimes you feel sad, you feel hopeless. And when someone talks about their experience to me and they're talking about how they feel sad or they feel angry, they feel hopeless, then I can tell you I know what that's like too. And i and the one thing I wanted more than anything else was for someone just to be there to feel the emotions with me. That's the key. You want people to feel the emotions alongside you, and when you're trying to be empathetic, you're trying to feel the emotions alongside them. Essentially, it's almost as if you sit with them and you take their bad emotions and you sort of sprinkle it into yourself, and you just feel it alongside them so they don't have to feel it alone. Because there's nothing that brings people together more than, in a way, although it sounds bad, mutual suffering. Sometimes when two people are going through really rough stuff, it brings them closer together because they can bond over those emotions.
I mean, so yes, I would definitely say that. I mean, me and John have both had our fair share of mutual suffering together. Let's just put it that way. We have our ranting sessions where we will just pour out everything that's going on. And then the other person's like, "Oh, shit, that's happening to me too." And then we even had a joke that, like, we're both PMSing together. It was like a whole thing. I don't know. Anyways, um, but the one distinction I would make, so yes, definitely when you're going through something and you know friends going through something, oh my gosh, there's nothing better than just talking it out over some coffee and just like really having that debrief together and just being able to rant. Honestly, there's no better feeling in the world. What I would say though, as kind of a caveat to that, is when you're trying to be empathetic to someone, there can often come a time where you start to bear that burden
Oh, that's a really
of
good point. That
their, yeah,
yeah.
of their situation. And there's a really, really fine line. And this is why practicing empathy is so tough, because you want to be there for someone and you want to share that emotion and show that you understand what they're going through and that you just want to be there for them. And that's what being a good friend's all about. But at the same time, it can take your own mental health, it can strain your own mental health having to deal with that kind of situation. Because even though it's not happening to you, it could be happening to a really close friend. And you feel that pain and you feel their suffering. And that's hard. And it's a fine line. And honestly, sometimes I don't even know how to distinguish between the two and how to be there for someone. Maybe John, you have a better answer to this, but how do you be there for someone without it take a strain on your own mental health and without really carrying the burden of what they're going through on your own back as well? Because I feel like that's a really tough question that we should probably answer as well.
Okay, so that is actually a really
I know
solid
that was a
point.
lot.
No. That's great. That's great. That's a really solid point. That's like
Yeah.
really adds a lot more sort of flesh to sort of what I was saying, because
Yeah.
she's Hallie's absolutely right in this regard. That you also run the danger of sort of becoming this person's like emotional battery. When they're done, when they're draining their own emotions, they latch onto you and they drain your emotions too. And it usually they don't do it intentionally. Sometimes people do, but I think the fine line goes is that it's the sort of intention that you have with sort of sharing the emotions. Are you
Yeah.
sharing the emotions just so you can feel better right now? Are you sharing the emotions so you can get more in touch with them and therefore work on them? And that's what it is. I think the focus has to be proactive empathy. you're not
Yeah.
you're not just sitting there feeling their emotions so they can feel good right now. You want to sort of be there for them and let them talk about this so that they can come to this realization and realize like, oh, these are the emotions that I'm having right now, this is the things that are happening in my life, and how can we work together to sort of find a better outcome. I'll take a personal example. I have a friend of mine who vents to me all the time. I won't say the name because privacy reasons.
Is it me?
It's not you. It's not you. But I do have a friend who vents to me all the time, always telling me about all their problems and things like that. But the thing is that when a person vents to you one time out of a lot of emotional turmoil, it's really meaningful, and you try to do your best to be empathetic and try to help them through the really tough time. When they vent to you every week, you're not exactly helping them anymore. You're just being a recipient for their emotions when they need to put it somewhere.
That's true.
Essentially, you're
That's
becoming
definitely true.
an outlet. So
Yeah.
when you're being empathetic to someone, also focus on the person. If you're sitting down with them through these really tough emotions and then those emotions come back, maybe you ask them, or maybe you try to like bring up the conversation when things are better, just saying like, why do you think you keep going through that cycle of emotions? Why does it keep coming back? And then maybe you two together can sort of find a way to ameliorate the emotions. Because the thing is that when I was depressed, I felt sad all the time. And when I vented to people, of course I felt better. It felt really nice to sort of get all my problems off my plate, feel really good. But then the emotions would come back, and I would and I would find good friends that are willing to sit with me and be empathetic and vent to them again. And the realization is that I wasn't getting better. I was just getting better for the moment, and then it would just come back. What I did need to do is focus on sort of actually looking at the source and root of my emotions and my problems and working towards it. And I eventually found it. You know, I've gotten professional help and things like that. But the focus, I think, with being empathetic is that you want to experience the emotions with the person, but you don't want to keep experiencing those emotions with the person because you don't want that person to feel those bad emotions. They're your friend. They're someone you care about. You want them to feel better or happy or genuinely okay. And sometimes to do that, you sort of have to move with them together to a better place where they may need to talk to someone. They may need to, you know, go seek professional help. They may need to just have a lifestyle change, scenery change, something that can help them sort of really understand their own emotions to a level where they can work on them. The focus is
Yeah.
working on the emotions, not just feeling the emotions.
I like what you said. Like, I think definitely, I feel like what we were talking about earlier in the podcast probably, I think more so touches on when someone, you know, the first time they come to you with a problem and you hear them out and you feel with them and you resonate with them and you say, I'm here for you and I have felt these things before and I know how hard it is. And really being there as a good friend. I feel like that's kind of what we were talking about before. But I really like what we're talking about now in the sense that, like, this conversation should be proactive. I mean, of course, the first time you talk about it, or maybe the second, if they're going through a really hard time, it also, I think, depends on the severity of the
Of
situation
course,
too.
it's definitely
Of
very context based.
Yeah, very context based. Because, of course, like I feel like what me and John are kind of saying is a generalization. Like, definitely, just as a disclaimer, like it's gonna depend on the situation for sure, and it's tough. It's just this is why empathy is so hard because it's so difficult to be able to match each situation and know how to help them in the best way possible that you can. And it's knowing the fine line between, hey, I'm being there and I'm being a good friend for them, and I am doing everything I can to help them, to this person might need someone who's not me to help them. They might need professional help. They might need someone just to talk to that isn't you, that can be there solely to talk to them about that problem. I think that was really hard for me to deal with because I had a really good friend that I saw he was struggling, and I could kind of tell that maybe there was something wrong that was deeper. But as much as I tried to talk to him about it and try to fix his problem, and I'll admit I was a fixer in that situation. I was trying to fix it when sometimes you just need to be there for someone and realize, hey, there's nothing more I can do here. And that's when it gets really tough to know that line, that fine line between doing good and then kind of standing back and saying, what else can I do here? Or do they need professional help? And that's really tough.
There's this piece of advice that they give to all aspiring psychologists in your psychology classes. There's a bird in the background, and that
Oh, there's a
he
bird?
no, he's
Oh, he's
listening to the
chirping.
podcast. He's listening to the
Oh, he's
podcast. It's okay.
listening. Good, good. I'm
But
outside just to let
there
everyone know.
there's this there's a sentiment that you have to learn when you're becoming an inspiring psychologist, when you're in your psychology classes, and it's this idea. And all of my teachers say it when because they're working on their PhDs, they're going through internships, they already do clinical work. They say sometimes a patient will come to you that you can't help, and you have to be okay with that. And it's sort of the most rough feeling you can have when you're trying to be empathetic, because you genuinely want the people you care about who are going through rough times to be better, to be happier, to get through this hard time and be better. But sometimes you have to realize that the person that can help them do that isn't you. And that although you do the best you can, that is all you can do. And sometimes when you do the best you can, it isn't exactly what they need. And the thing is, I really want to hammer this down. Don't blame yourself if you can't help your friend. It's okay. It's not your fault. Because
It's not. That is so true.
so many people really try their best to help their friends, help them through really tough times. And when they feel like they can't, They blame themselves. They said, I could have tried harder. I could have done something better. But that isn't true. Sometimes that's just the reality. They just need someone else to help them. And that's why I want to say that my greatest advice in this area is make sure you focus on the person. If they go to someone else and they end up feeling better because of their professional helps, or they just know the situation better, then focus on being happy that your friend is sort of really working towards a better place than being guilty for feeling like you didn't do enough, because you did your best. Doing your best is all you can do. And I think it's really a good thing to focus on, is just saying, okay, I may have tried my best and it may have not helped them in the way that I wanted to, but they're better now because they sought the right help, and I'm happy for them. That's the mindset I feel like you should really have in this sort of situation.
And I also think that that's practicing empathy with yourself. I feel like this whole episode, and I actually think that this would be like a whole other episode to talk about, but being empathetic to yourself um, is it's hard. Like it's really, really hard, especially when you have a friend that's going through something really difficult and there's nothing more that you can do. Sometimes it's sitting back and saying, I've done everything I could, but they need someone else to help them. That's not me. Um, and to draw like on a personal experience, I had a friend, like a really long time friend, that really struggled with drugs and things of that sort. And he recently passed away. And I remember, as through our friendship, I constantly tried to sit him down and, or just, not pressure him too much to make him draw back, and get defensive, but just in a friendly way say, hey, I think that this is too much. I think that you need to take a look at what this is doing to you and evaluate that. Um, and to put a long story short, everything I did didn't work. And now it's really tough because this friend is gone, and I, at the end of the day, have to realize that there's nothing more I could do, and I eventually, before he passed, I took a step away from that friendship because I knew that it was putting a strain on my own mental health to carry that emotional baggage in that sense. And I think that's pretty much sums it up. It's really hard, and it's easy to talk about these situations and be like, okay, just be there for your friends, be there, and but don't be too much there, or too there for them in case that you're straining yourself. I don't know whether I'm explaining this the right way, but you're putting strain on your own mental health by being too much there for them. But then, in my situation, when he passed, like that was something that I really had to grapple with, that there was nothing more that I could do. And at the end of the day, he wasn't able to get the help that he needed, but I wasn't that person who could have drawn him out of his situation. And sometimes there's no easy answer. Oh my God. Sometimes it just doesn't, it just hits you in the face and you're just like, fuck this. But it's also being kind to yourself and knowing and giving yourself a little bit of grace, and knowing that sometimes you're not the person that is supposed to help them. And sometimes there's no person that can help them. And that's what's really hard to deal with, I think, that not a lot of people talk about. Anyways, to you, John.
Yeah, I really appreciate your ability to talk about the situation, because I know it's really hard for
Yeah.
you. I know you've been through the ringer when it came to that. And
Yeah.
I've been through similar things, and realizing that the people around me that I really, really genuinely want to help and really genuinely want to see be better, I'm just not the right person for them. And it kills me sometimes, because I,
Oh
I
my gosh, it totally
really,
killed me.
I really genuinely want to see the people that I care about prosper and, grow in so many ways, and I can't.
Yeah.
And like the last point you said about sometimes no one can help. There's a statistic that psychology works for 80% of people, that 20% of
Hmm.
people just can't be helped by psychology and things like that. And that's sort of kind of an example of how sometimes people are beyond help. But the focus I want to say about that is, just because some people are beyond help does not mean you do not try. And I think that's always what I'm going to say. The biggest way to be empathetic is to at least try. Sometimes you'll
Yeah.
fail, sometimes it won't work, sometimes you may not be the right person, sometimes they can't be helped, but at least try. Because when you at least try to be empathetic, you're doing your best. That is your best if you at least try. Because
Yeah.
empathy, even though it may not work sometimes, and even though it may be soul crushingly hard when it doesn't work, it does work in so many other ways for so many people. And you as a person, like, you may downplay yourself, whoever's listening to this, you may downplay yourself so much. You may say that you're not special, or you're not worth it, or you can't do things, but you absolutely can. And being empathetic is one of the best ways you can be. Because if there's anything anyone can respect, it's a good friend. It's a person who's there to help other people, to help them through rough times, to genuinely care about the well-being of other people. Because there's so many people in the world right now, and the world's crazy right now. So
Oh, it's so crazy.
there's so many
Ah,
people in the world right now that don't care enough about other people. And
yeah.
don't let that be you. Because part of being kind to yourself is also recognizing that you have the potential to be kind to other people.
Yeah. You have a not even just a potential, it's almost like a responsibility, you know? It I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and I don't know, maybe I'm kind of, I guess, a little more sensitive, I guess. I love to just see the beauty in people and nature and stuff like that. I don't know, call me crazy. But
I
I
agree.
was
I
talking.
also like those things.
Yeah, wonderful, cool job. I'm happy for that. Oh my gosh. Okay, so anyways, but I was really talking about it, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, why are we all here? And, you might have a view in religion, and you might have, your own perspective of life and the meaning of it. But I would make the argument that we're here for each other, you know? It's like humans crave connection, which I think is why quarantine and social distancing and this whole coronavirus pandemic has really put a strain on a lot of people's mental health, because deep down we are creatures that crave emotion. We crave love. We crave being there with other humans and connecting with people. No matter what your view, I just think that's like almost a fundamental, like, baseline value that strings all of us, crazy people on this blue earth, this little blue ball, kind of strings us all together. Is It's the connections that we have. And so, what's the point if not to be someone there for your friends, if not to be a ledge that someone can lean on and a shoulder to cry on? I feel like that's at least where I find value in the world. And not saying not to try to put, ideas in anyone's heads, but I think it's just a thought for all of us to marinate on. Is, being there for other people, it's what we crave, I think, deep down in our souls, and it makes our souls happy and makes us feel more alive. I don't know, maybe that's a little tangent, a
I
little
think I think it's
metaphysical
I think
tangent.
it's a great sentiment, and I think
Yeah, it's a good sentiment, it's a
a
good
lot of
feeling.
people can benefit from embodying that sort of idea. And,
Yeah.
like, so we're sort of wrapping up on time in terms of the topic section, and we'll get into the Q&A section in a little bit. But I wanted to sort of
Yeah.
add this, like, finalizing idea that, like, when it feels like the world is ending, when everything feels like nothing makes sense anymore, like your world's topsy-turvy, everything's going bad, you don't know what to do, you're hopeless, you're sad, you're angry. Sometimes you don't need a solution. You don't need, a silver lining. You don't need to look on the positive side. You don't need, uh, a little bit of, your favorite food, or, the thing you like to do the most. What you just need is a friend. You just need someone to be there with you at the end of the world. So it doesn't feel like the end of the world anymore, to get through the bad times. And obviously, being there, being that friend, like we've said throughout this whole episode, it's hard. Sometimes you try your best and you don't succeed. Sometimes you may not be the right person. But if there's anything me and Hallie want to sort of put as the message of this episode, there is no harm in trying. No matter
Yeah.
what, at least try to be kind to other people. Try to be kind to yourself. Try to be empathetic, because people
Yeah.
deserve it. Even if you may disagree with them, disapprove of them, even if they may be different than you, even they may have a different skin color, different gender, different race, different hair color, even they deserve kindness, even if maybe they don't give kindness to you. Because
Yeah, people with blue hair, man, the worst. No, I'm just kidding.
like Hallie
Jokes.
says, I agree. I believe we're here to connect with other people and care for other people.
Yeah.
All
And maybe
right.
that's a little too, I don't know, too
If
abstract.
you have a
But
response, we are
yeah.
actually we do have, of course, a Twitter. We are
Yeah.
going to start an Instagram page, so that will
Yeah. Woo.
have definitely avenues for you to respond to episodes, to sort of post questions that you want to put in the Q&A section, which we're about to jump into right now. But yeah, definitely be on the
Yeah.
lookout for that.
And
But
hopefully by the time we post this, that we'll have the
yeah.
Instagram live. So maybe we can put it in the comments or description, or I don't know how
Yeah,
that
yeah.
works.
We'll,
John.
we'll definitely update you with how to reach us on Instagram, and
Yeah. How to
definitely have
connect.
avenues for interaction. So anyone wants to
Yeah.
sort of ask us personal questions or really talk to us about the topics or respond, then
Mm-hmm.
we're totally there to read it and even
Yeah.
put it on the show afterwards. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to our Twitter feed. Only a few
Wait,
questions.
can I
Oh,
add like a really last touching
yeah,
point?
yeah, of course,
Like,
of course.
super fast, just because I know the time's running out, but not running out, but going long. Um, One little thing I just want to note is that your friends might not come to you with a problem, um, and they might not be looking to rant. So, like, it can be hard to notice the silent sufferers, but people definitely, I know I do. I bear all my burdens on myself, and I will not speak to anyone about what I'm going through. So check in on your friends. Be kind to yourself. Check in on your friends. Be kind to them. Just see how they're doing. And I feel like that also goes into trying.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, that's my
Really
final
great
thought.
point. I'm actually really
Check
glad you
in
had that
on your
point. Yeah.
check in on your friends, because yeah, silent sufferers, they sometimes suffer the worst.
Yeah.
So okay, that's my
That's
point.
actually a really great point. I do agree with that wholeheartedly.
Okay.
So for the
Yes.
questions, we have two. The first one is, what is our perspective on romantic relationships? That's a really big question.
Yeah. In what way?
Likely we're going to put that as just a full length episode on relationships and
Oh,
mental
no
health.
doubt.
So I don't think we're going to answer it right now because the question is a bit too big for the time that we have left. But I
Well,
definitely
should we?
appreciate it.
Is there like maybe one aspect we should mention?
It
Romantic relationships. Maybe be empathetic to your partners. That's like,
absolutely.
yeah,
Sometimes
definitely.
in relationships you're just feeling things and you may not be as communicative, and if your partner just seems to be a little bit off or just going through or seems to go through some time, but they don't want to tell you because they don't want to worry you,
Yeah.
try to be as open as possible. Say, hey,
Yeah.
you can talk to me about anything, even if it worries me, or like, I am willing to sit here and talk to you about anything and help you through stuff
Yeah.
because I love you, or something like that.
Even in fights. I love you,
Even
or
in
something
fights,
like that. Even in
when
fights, have
you are
empathy.
bickering, you should still be empathetic.
Yeah, and I'm the worst one to talk about this, I feel like, because whenever I get in fights with people, not like actual fight, like physical fights, but I mean like bickering arguments and stuff like that, man, I can just be a stone cold B word, let me tell you. But it's all about retraining your brain, being kind to yourself, and stopping yourself when you feel like yourself getting kind of, your tough shell exterior is starting to come out and grow a little bit. um, Cut it down a little bit, and be kind to your partner and try to hear them out. um,
And
Yeah,
if you
that's what I would
want a
say.
continuation of this conversation, stay tuned
Yes.
for our episode on romantic relationships.
Yeah, definitely will have to be an episode.
Okay, so second question, which is actually from a friend of mine, Vedant Curry, who does in fact run a podcast of his
The
own.
money.
He does in fact run a podcast of his own. It's called Let's Talk Media. You should definitely check it
Oh,
out.
but don't I
But
miss him.
yeah.
Oh.
But he asked, where did the name BKTY come from? And it's a reference to the motto of my life, which is be kind to yourself.
Mhm.
There are a lot of times in my life when people would ask me, "Oh, what's your motto?" or like, "What's your life saying?" or whatever. And I came up with like a lot of things because I just like that sort of stuff. I think it's like fun to do.
It's like
And
such
then
a John thing.
yeah,
You guys don't even know. It's such
and
a John
then
thing.
I settled on this phrase, be kind to yourself, because it embodied what my struggles were through time. And with my depression, one of the biggest things that came out of depression for me was that I really hated myself. It breeded this really harsh and destructive culture of self-hatred. And so the one lesson I learned from all my experiences through going through all that problems and going from hating myself to loving myself is be kind to yourself. And it's the advice I would give to every single person. If every single person asked
Yeah,
me, what is one piece of advice you would give me? I'd say be kind to yourself. Because
yeah.
in this day and age, people really do.
Yeah, John came up with a name, but I wholeheartedly agree. Being kind to yourself. I just think like we live in a world where, I mean, I feel like this will be a whole, just like everything, this will be a whole other podcast episode at some point because this is definitely something I want to touch on. But like, we live in such a work-oriented culture, at least in America, where everything's about productivity and being the best version of yourself and all this stuff. And sometimes it's just a load of bullshit. And it's just, like I mean, I don't want to go too far into a tangent, but I feel like it's just our culture trying to create this like hyper productivity environment that no one needs and it just stresses everyone else out. And I don't know, I could go on forever, but basically, in a world that seems crazy and people are constantly moving at 100 miles per hour, and you feel like you're not enough or you're not doing enough or you're not being enough to someone else's expectations, it's just being kind to yourself and just knowing that everyone has their own path in their own life and everyone has their own story and their own experience. And yeah, it might be similar to someone else's, but no two people are equal at all. And it's just knowing that you're unique and you're special. I don't know, not to say everyone's a special flower and we all deserve participation trophies, but honestly, yeah, give me a participation trophy in life. Like, that's what I need. I'm
Participation
like,
trophies were the only ones I ever got. So
yeah, me too. Those are the only ones I resonate with, honestly. So, yeah, it's okay. Just know it's okay. And everything's going to be okay. That's,
okay.
I guess, what I have to
On
add.
that wonderful note,
Yes.
we're gonna wrap up today's podcast episode. So I
Yeah.
want to say thanks for tuning into the BKTY podcast. You can find all updates and information on our Twitter at BKTY podcast and now on our Instagram at BKTY podcast
Yes.
as well. And then
Mm-hmm.
to all of our listeners, we want to say have a wonderful day as always, and always, always, always don't
Be
forget
kind to
to be
yourself.
kind to yourselves.
I'm sorry. I think my brain's getting a little jumbled. I thought we were going to say that at the same time.
It's okay. It's okay. All
Maybe,
right.
maybe one,
We
two,
like to
three.
have fun here on the BKTY podcast. But so this is gonna be me and Hallie signing off. All right.
Yeah.
And
All
so
right.
we say
Peace.
see you next time.
Yeah.